All right, everybody, welcome to Coffee for Closers. Today we're talking about our three favorite selling systems that basically we use these three selling systems to create our master sales system here at Megastar. But we felt like it would be a good time for us to kind of explain what the method behind each of them were. There's some of the most classic ones out there, so we hope you guys enjoy the episode. And don't forget to leave a comment, like, or subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to Coffee for Closers. This week, or this episode, we are talking specifically about the selling systems. I'm here with Rick, our favorite selling systems, of which we have three to go over.
Yep.
And this is just in general. I don't know if these are
in particular order.
Order, and I don't think, well, I'm going to make it very clear what's my favorite.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Because that's, I've made it very public on this show.
Yeah.
To this point.
Still got three books you should consider, right? If you're going to read number 1, 2, and 3, go pretty well hand in hand.
Well, we're going to do an episode about top books, right? The
yeah.
best books. But this is just about our favorite selling systems. Not every sales book is about a system per se.
Yeah, true.
But these three are about a selling system. Because I could say like Carnegie and all that, but it's not really a selling system.
Yeah,
it's thought process and like mentality
personality, who to be, your character.
Yeah. And then, anyway, these are three of our favorite selling systems. We practice and preach them here at the home office as well as to our advisors. It's great from a B2B perspective, great from a B2C perspective. So dealing in the retail world or dealing with, relationships in the IMO space, whatever. I guess we just get into it.
Yeah,
let's start with the first one. First one being basically the first thing that we learned when we came in here.
Yeah.
The Sandler Sales System. Right? And for those who don't know about the Sandler Sales System, it basically revolves around the submarine, right? And he's got, how many stages it is? Like 7 stages?
5 to 7, yeah.
5 to 7 stages of this submarine. And Sandler has a bunch of books, but primarily the big book is you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar.
Yep.
Right? And this book is outlining that, essentially you've got to move through this submarine, the Sandler submarine, which just sounds like an alliteration. I don't think he's obsessed with submarines.
No.
Or did the submarine actually have anything to do
so,
with it other than like it's going to fill with fluid?
Yeah, so the whole concept of the submarine was like in his process to Sandler, which I think varies different from one of the other books we're going to talk about or one of the other sales processes we're going to talk about. It's like you can take a sales process and break it down into chunks. And once you get through that chunk, you can just close that off and not have to go back to it, right?
So a good salesperson will move between these processes and seal off that chamber so that somebody can't go back.
Right. As the submarine's sinking and filling with water, they have the pod doors that you seal off so one section fills and it doesn't fill the rest of it.
So I do this, I take care of business here, and then that's it. I don't need to do that anymore. I'll go, and then we keep moving down the path.
Yep.
And I think this is good. I think there's pieces about it that I love. The best thing being the upfront contract. He talks about setting upfront contracts. I think this is extraordinarily powerful. It is the idea that once you've built rapport and do your opening, which pretty much every sales system will say, we were just kind of chuckle about that.
Yep. And you got to grab him both by the bootstraps.
Both by the bootstraps.
And just put that insurance policy in his pocket.
And you
that's an assumptive
You say,
close.
Hey, buddy, that's for you.
And you say, you know what? You sign that. You get it back to me.
You sign that, you get it back to me.
2 to 3 days. In fact, I'll be back.
I'm going to be back.
I'll be back.
I'm going to be back.
I'll be back.
I'm going to be back.
I'm going to be back next week.
And I'm going to get that from you.
It's going to be signed.
It's going to be signed.
We're going to do some business together.
And you and me, we're going to have a lot of good things together.
Yeah. And we'll pay off the mafia together, know?
Oh, jeez, no. What? But it's about saying what your intentions are, right? They say, look, before I go into my presentation, this is what I'm after, right? This is what I'm looking to do, right? And I'm going to send you down this path. I'm going to be very clear with you on what it is. Explain this and this. And so if you're a financial planner or whatever, it's like I'm going to say, I'm going to give you an in-depth plan. I'm going to do some fact-finding. I'm going to do this. But my goal is that at the end of this, you become a client of ours, right? That's my goal. And I want to be transparent. And I want to know that you're open-minded to that before we go down this whole path. Because of X, Y, and Z reason, I'm going to have to do X amount of hours of work. I'm going to have to do Y amount of research into these products and that product. And I'm going to take this very, very seriously because that's all I know how to do. But at the end of this, if it feels like, or if along the way you're just saying, hey, you know what, we're really just humoring this guy because we kind of got guilted into doing this, or we don't know why we're here, or we don't really need this because we're just going to go with our brother-in-law or something, get off right now.
Yeah.
Let's get out. Let's not do this. Let me be very clear. This is my upfront contract. This is what I'm looking to do. And then moving into the process, dependent upon their answer. It doesn't always mean that I'm done. If they say, nah, I'm not really interested, it's like, I'm just going to start handling those objections now.
Yeah.
And then I'll seal off this section if I need.
Concept being that it's easier to handle an objection about the upfront contract than it is about closing the deal, right? If it's, hey, look, right, we get to the end of the pitch, I'm going to do this for you, and that requires you to do this, or you to do this for me. Is that fair, right?
Right.
Yes. If they say no, right, you have an objection to just that deal, right? And you have more manipulation power into saying like, okay, well, if that doesn't work, then let's look at doing this. Does that work? And they're like, yes, right? So you can readjust that.
Why do you okay, so, well, why don't you want to become a client of ours? Is it
Why
because
wouldn't you want to report?
Why wouldn't you want this done?
Yep.
Why aren't you doing it? Like, what brought you to the workshop or to book this appointment? Like, why'd you do all that if it wasn't something that, this wasn't something, oh, well, we thought it was this. And if they give a good reason, then potentially it is. It's like, oh, okay, well, I understand that. But if it's not a good reason, it gives you that chance to argue right then and there. And the truth is, it saves you a boatload of time because I'd rather handle, those are the objections that are going to come out in the 11th hour.
Yep.
Of like, well, we just have to think about it. What do you have to think about? Well, they might not say it, but I know what it is. It's, we just don't know if we want to do it with you, right? This all makes sense and everything, but I don't know that I trust you, right? Or I don't know that I want to become a client of yours. That's kind of the thought there. So we need to think this through and let this sink in and see if we really think, we like you a lot. But if you handle that right up front, it's like, okay, well, then if they come up with, I just don't know. Like, even if we did hear all that, we'd still want some time to make a decision. And so, it's like, okay, well, why do you feel that is? And at least I'm handling these things well before I ever did all the work.
Yep.
And then if I have handled those in the Sandler world, if I've closed that hatch off in the submarine, I won't have any of those objections come up later on. And I can move through to closing, and it should just be signing paperwork at that point, or, whatever your sale is.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the two really good things I picked up from that process was, one, to be a little bit more methodical in your process of moving through the sale, right? I don't necessarily agree that you can move just head forward through a sales process and lock off chambers of getting things done, right? To look at it systematically of like bonding and report, needs assessment, analysis, solution development, close, right? Like I think more things come out, right? And I guess that's kind of the nice part of it. It's like if you're doing each step properly, more things shouldn't come out, right? If you've done your needs assessment process fully, it shouldn't come to the 11th hour where they're like, oh, we forgot to tell you we have all this, right? So it kind of moves you through a pretty good process of where you are in the sale. And I think, yes, the upfront contract is the other second part to the book that really, or the whole process and the book that ties it together. I think the psychology there is really good, saying like, hey, look, if I can set up an upfront contract with a person, one, they're agreeing to do something with me, which we're already doing like mini deals to get them ready for like the major deal to close, right? Like I get them to agree to a contract with me. We've closed the contract. We progressed there. Everything went smooth. That should psychologically put them in a better position when we get to the end of it. The one thing I think we found, or at least that I found, is like there's an assumption with that upfront contract that people aren't going to break it. Right? When you make an upfront contract with somebody and they're like, yeah, absolutely, I agree. That seems like a fair deal. And you're like, all right. And then
when I do this,
right?
then I'm going to become a client. But that's maybe that's an overestimation of what the saying, the upfront contract really means. It just means it's like, hey, what Sandler's trying to say is, Just get it out there of what your goals and intentions are so that they aren't shocked at the end that you're asking them to become a client, you know. But I do disagree because the overall tone of the Sandler Sales System is that you can't go back, or you shouldn't have to go back and rediscover the pain or the budget or, you know, I'm looking at the submarine right now. It's like pain. It's like, yeah, okay, pain, you should discover the pain, but a lot of times people's surface pains and what they tell you is their pain isn't their actual pain, and sometimes you find that out later on. Like they tell you this thing is their pain, and then you realize it's actually something deeper, unless you're clairvoyant or you just have the sixth sense of the gods. You might not always be able to pick up on that, and to say that it's just, I'm going to spend forever in this pain world and not take them, because you still have to address what they say their pain is, right?
Agreed.
And so if you move on, it's like, okay, well, I'm not supposed to move back. Theoretically, I'm not supposed to move back and start talking pain again.
Yep.
And so now I'm moving towards budget, and it's like, well, his pain is actually something else. Like, how many clients do the folks watching this at home have that say, like, this is their problem, and that they don't have any of these other problems? Like, no, I don't have any, like, risk problems. I'm very well diverse. And it's like, you are, though. Yeah. It's like, no, I really just have a question about this thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, that might be this, but, you know, this is also this. Yeah. And let's say they don't agree to that. It's like, you still got to move forward. Anyway, I agree with that.
It's like a detective, like, right? Like, you get a case detail, or, you know, you walk into a situation, you're like, all right, these are all the facts, right? If you assume and make a definitive statement that, like, these are all the facts, the first things I was presented with were all the facts, you would never end up coming to a realization if anything changed, right? If, like, one of those things was wrong, you're never going to get the right answer in the end of the case, right?
I do think that the people that use this and use this well and love the Sandler Sales System have adopted it, have adapted it, to a degree. Almost every one of them. It does work. It is a good sales system that works towards closing deals, especially in a more transactional business. Relationship-wise, long-term sales-wise, I don't necessarily see this happening. But again, our next sales system is probably one that I would rather go towards for a product sale or direct, you know, any sale, to be honest. But it's a good sales system. The Sandler selling system is basically this. You've got your sales submarine. Sandler says you move through these phases of the sale, and you lock them off as you move forward. The first being bonding and rapport. You're going to set that bonding and rapport. You're going to lock that off. You go into setting that upfront contract. Once you've done that, you lock that off. Next thing is you're going to start moving in to find the pain of the prospect. Makes sense. And once you've discovered, or discovery phase, or fact-finding, whatever you want to call it, find the pain. Once you found it, lock that off, right? Make sure it's the right pain. Then move towards budget. Do they have the budget to buy what I need, right? It's like in our industry, that's where it starts to get a little fuzzy. It's like, well, if I did fact-finding, then I know they have the budget. So maybe this is more in tune with like a life sale, right? Or like,
which I think is where Sandler got his, world from, was like selling life insurance.
Like, do you have the budget for buying this life insurance policy? And then make the decision, right? Like, so I'm going to be like, oh, okay, well, basically give my proposal. This is what I'm thinking. Are you willing to make this? Is the decision, are you going to fill this out? Then we do the paperwork, get this all filled out. And then the post-sell, which is just like coming back and making sure the persistency is there, right? So it lends itself very well to a life sale. You're probably right there. But for me, it's like it's so specific to that thing, and it's like it's just so obvious. Like this is like the core of every sales book ever out there, and I don't see other than the upfront contract, which is the greatest point about this. It's a little bit gimmicky in my opinion. A little bit.
That's fair. I think
still ranks in one of my top 3 sales processes. But I'm just saying, like, this is the issue.
I think it's a great process to like kind of build a process off of. You're like, hey, look, this is a good level of a sales process, but let me move these pieces to adjust to either my market or my style or the clientele I'm sitting with. And I think to bridge the Sandler to the next one we're going to talk about, I feel like in the Sandler process, you're more pulling the client along with you, right? You're doing the building rapport, which means you're just kind of talking to the client, trying to build a relationship with the client. The only time you're really asking any questions or like developing like a question kind of process is through that fact-finding process, right? I think the pain tunnel, right? So when you're in the pain section of it, now you're asking a bunch of questions, fact-finding, figuring out what the problems are, right? And then again, just like the rest of the tunnels, once you're done with that section, you stop asking questions, right? Now you're back to the telling. So it's like 1 out of the 5 or 7 submarine sections are the only ones you're really asking questions of the client, right? The rest of them you're talking to and you're kind of dragging the client through the sale. The next one, the spin selling, why I liked it, why it connected with me a lot was this one I think relates to a lot of, again, the doctor analogies we use, the stuff we use, and the other programs we do, where it's like you're kind of questioning a client into selling themselves. Like the whole process of it is like
it's a lot of questions. It's
getting them
question-based.
to kind of realize like, hey, look, I need this, right? Or hey, look, this is the problem, and I didn't, because you asked me this and because we've kind of worked this out together. Now I'm realizing that I have an issue. I'm realizing that my finances aren't what they were. I'm realizing that I didn't understand what this is. I'm realizing that I need to do something about it, right? I think it's like the Sandler's kind of telling, and the spin selling is almost more of like a therapy session.
Yeah, we should say the second sales system is spin selling, which is a popular book back in like the early 90s or 80s or something like that. But it's a great book, nevertheless, about basically question-based selling, and was developed for long-term sales cycles, longer sales cycles, which a lot of times is the retirement planning world, depending on when you're getting in touch with these prospects, right? It can be, at least, depending on your marketing. And again, like it says, like figuring out the surface level of their business, right? And then figuring out what is the deeper-seated issues. Like, what's the status quo of your business? Like, what do you expect? What are things that you might not realize are problems? And then basically using that to say these questions, let's see, the third stage is implication, right? So it says use these questions to show buyers why they need to change, right? So you're kind of like leading them down a path of like, hey, look, like these are the reasons why things go wrong in your business. Yeah. And then you go to like,
it's like, why do you think these things are going wrong in your business, right?
Right.
Then they tell you, and it's like, well, what do you think would solve that, right? And then they tell you, right? It's like, what do you think's wrong with your finances? And the client's like, well, I don't know, right? And it's like, well, why do you think you don't have enough money, right? And like you're questioning them to kind of figure it out a little bit more.
They just answer. They sell themselves into thinking like, oh yeah, you're right. Like this is this, and this is what I need. And it's that guided enlightenment, and that's. You know, a lot of the sales systems that we've put in place here have been a hodgepodge of these 3 selling systems put together. And this is the part that I love about spin selling, is just the asking of questions is like, hey, look, well, let me ask you this. Like we've always said about like marketing strategies. Well, how many people do you get in a room when you do, or when you do your mailers? Like how many people do you get on to register for your workshop, and how many of those registrants show up, and how many of those shows book appointments, and how many of those booked appointments do this? It's like easy questions that they typically know the answers to. It's like, how many workshops do you do a year? It's like, with this, or how much do you close off of any of those 5 appointments that showed up? This amount, okay. And then how many of those workshops do you do a year? Well, I do this amount. It's like, well, okay. Why do you think that you're not doing more than that? Or why do you, it's like, it's going to be told right there in those analytics that, hey, this, it's either this, like you're not closing enough business there, or it's not, you're not doing enough of these. Yeah.
And generally, as you're
or
talking
the
with an
marketing's
advisor,
not good.
it's like you're like walking each other through it at the same time, right? Like, how are you looking to improve the business this year, right? It's like, okay, well, what are we doing, right? We're doing X amount of seminars, closing X amount of business.
Starting at the top there, right?
And it's like, okay, so we've been doing $5 million a year, $7 million a year. Well, how do you think we would increase this, right? It's like, well, obviously, either we do more workshops, we do better at closing, right? Like, where do you think you're missing at, right? And that, like, kind of lets you guide with them.
And they're like, well, I think I would do more. I think I'm closing about as good as anybody out there, but I'm just not seeing enough people. And it's like, okay, well, what have you done to like start changing the marketing up a little bit? Well, I talked to my guy at this mail house. It's like, well, is the mail house doing anything different, drastically different? Do you see numbers changing? Not really. It's like, well, what do you think you should do next then? Yeah. He was like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at some other stuff like this. It's like, well, do you think the mail is the right way, or do you think something more progressive? Do you think it's because people don't really believe in mail anymore, or do you think they're going towards digital? Well, I think they're going towards digital. It's like, okay, well, if you're going towards digital, then like, what are the digital options out there? You know, we've got some solutions that potentially could go up for that. Is that something you'd be interested in me hearing or telling you about? Like, oh yeah, definitely. It's like, boom, now I'm into my pitch. And they walk themselves through to that pitch. And so I am very question based. I know you are as well. Yeah. You know, it's just, again, let them, like most people just need to be put in a place of deep thought and guided deep thought. Like they need a guide on the journey of deep thought to understand their business to a low degree. And they're like, wow, yeah, I didn't really think about that. And you just give them these little crossroads to make a decision, and they'll always end up. I mean, if you're a smart guy, Johnny does a great bit about this. Maybe we should have him on the show one time. But a great guide can kind of lead you down the path that they want you to. If you're very skilled at questions, asking the right questions, you can guide somebody right down to the answer that you want them to be. And it'll feel to the prospect, and this is what spin selling is all about, that they made this decision. And you didn't push them there. Very different than Sandler, which is basically push. And this is kind of like, look, which way are we going to go? We're going to go down that path or that path? Okay, great. And then you walk down that path, and then you're like, oh, we just hit another crossroads. Which way should we go now, bud? And they're like, that way. All right. So then we're like, okay, let's go down that way. I was like, well, we hit another crossroads. What are we doing here? Right here. Okay, well, great. This is a dead end here, and it's going to lead right to me. And I'm going to solve it. Right?
If it's one path that you don't want to go down, it's like, well, why do you think we should pick that path?
And
they
they're
tell you
like,
something that's like, I didn't think so.
You're
We
right.
both don't
We
think
should
that's
go
a
down
good
the
one.
other
Let's go down that
path. It's like, we both don't think that's good. It's like, really? You think mail's better than, you think more people are gravitating towards mail in the digital age than digital? Why is that? And they're like, I don't really have a good answer for that. Yeah, you're right. Maybe digital is the way to go. It's like,
Would you think you check your mailbox or Facebook more?
You're like, Facebook. You're right. I do go to my Facebook more. All right, I'm going to go Facebook.
Right.
And then boom, they're right there with you. Anyway. So spin selling teaches a lot about how to ask the right questions. With Sandler, you're getting that upfront contract value and the progression of like, hey, look, you really got to get things out of the way early in order to really set yourself up so you're not surprising the prospect late in the sales cycle. The spin selling world is telling you how to ask questions and become less of a pushy salesperson and let somebody make decisions and lead themselves to your product. The third, and my favorite, is the straight line selling system, which was popularized by Belfort, Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of the Wall Street. And, take that as you will. This system is brilliant. But it is probably the only of these three that does a very good job of is simplifying. So if you need to teach a sales system to somebody and really be able for somebody to simply understand what's going on here in the buyer's mind, there's nobody that does it better than Belfort in making it very clear and simple as to what makes a prospect make a decision. Right? In spin selling, you don't get that. It's like, here's the 4 things that need to be accomplished, but these aren't really the goals. And it's like, okay, well, what questions do I ask? Well, they're not going to get specific questions. You have to be knowledgeable enough to be able to think about, like you almost have to stop reading it and be like, let me think on that. Like, how does this apply to my business? How would I cultivate a question and make these crosswords happen? And in Sandler, it's like, well, how do I have a killer opening and build rapport? And then what is my upfront contract going to be? And what do I say if they object to that? Do I still move on to pain, or do I stay and just argue the upfront contract forever?
But I'm not supposed to circle back. So do I circle back?
But I can't circle. I'm not supposed to circle back. With Belfort's system is basically this. In any sale, there are 3 things that need to be accomplished. 1, they need to believe that in you, without a shadow of doubt, that you are the person to be that you're gonna they're gonna deal with you, and you are absolutely the bomb. 2, they need to believe in the product that you're offering, right? And 3, they need to believe in your company, and that's it. These are the 3 things that anybody needs to know or needs to be sure on. And everybody has a different, in his theory, a buying or action threshold of which, some people need to be 10 out of 10 on the person, and some need to be 10 out of 10 on the product, and some of them need to be 10 out of 10 on the company.
Yep.
And everybody has a little bit of a different variation. You might be 7 out of 10 on the product, but you really love a great company and you want the person you're dealing with to be awesome. I might be, a stickler about the product, and that's like your engineers and stuff. These are the people. This is what the whole sales system revolves around, is these 3 10s. And it's like, okay, yeah, you want to have a good opening, but he's the only one that goes strict in detail of like, look, you need to be in that first opening, not just say like, oh, you got to build rapport and you got to charm them real quick, and you got to lead them in and then shake them hands and kiss their babies and talk about their sports team. Yeah, get the weather, short time. He's like, no, you need to, in the first 5 seconds, be proving that you are sharp as a tack, knowledgeable as heck, and somebody that's different. Right? You need to, in those first 5 seconds, be proving that something. I am something that's organized, sharp as a tack, and knowledgeable as hell. Right? And in those first 5 seconds, if I've accomplished that sort of thing, it's like you got to be confident. Right? That's at least a good idea of like, okay, well, I got to go in with some energy. I got to be cocky, and I got to know what I'm talking about very quickly. Be ready. Set myself up to potentially be in a position where they're going to challenge me, right? Not be scared to get challenged. I'll bet you if you call me back, I will 10x your production in I will tell you one secret on how to 10x your production in no less than 5 seconds. Give me a shout when you get a chance. It's like voicemails like that, better than saying, whatever else. Like, hey, my name's blah, blah, blah. I got one of the best products in the world. Just wanted to leave a line and see if you're interested. It's like, no. I'm going to be cocky on that. But then moving forward through the pain, understanding and fact-finding, and then moving into the 3 10s, trying to establish these things. By this point, you've already got somebody sold on you to some degree at this point. But you start to feel out their needs in those 3 areas. I'm trying to pitch in a way that gets them 10 out of 10 or as high as I possibly can on.
And that's what I like about it, too, is it's not just like 3 concepts. He does put like a numerical ranking to it, and that helped me like monetize where I was at, or at least symbolize where I was at in the sales process, right? Like 1 out of 10 on you, your product, and your company. So it's like
very easy,
right? You can like see where you're at with it.
Very easy to think of like, well, the guy really likes me. We chum it up every time we talk, and he had a great, he has a ton of assets, and he really liked that annuity product I showed him. Right?
Yeah. But like you're saying, like try to build a pitch towards.
Yeah, it's like, what did he not necessarily do? And a lot of times in our industry, it's the you. Or they're not pitching the company enough. Like everybody goes so deep into product, and they don't spend enough time talking about the carrier themselves or their company themselves, right? Like
that's
whichever
a big
it is.
one people forget is like who you are.
Who
right?
you
like
are, not who
is.
you are as the seller, but like. We have a guy named Carl Lewis that comes on the show every once in a while, and like he does a really good job really talking about his family business and why he started this and the core elements of it. Rafael Musto does this a lot. The video
did with Fortune. Right?
Fortune does this a lot. It's like,
company.
It's like my business, my company. It's like these are the elements, but in the straight line, you are very easily to just ask yourself, well, look, the client's still objecting. What is it that they need? Do I feel in my gut that they're sold on me?
No.
Are they sold on my company? Are they sold on this product? And if they are, and you feel like they're as sold as they're going to be in those areas, you've touched on these things and they're not sold. What does he do? He offers you in his selling system a way to go back and start tackling these. He calls them looping patterns. And the goal of these looping patterns is to go back in and lower the pain or increase the pain and lower the action thresholds of these people. By increasing pain, the needs of the pain, which sounds obvious, but sometimes it's like, well, you just need a checklist. It's like, yeah, I pitched them hard on me. I pitched them hard on my product, and I pitched them hard on my company. Like, what else can I do? It's like, no, you need to go back to the pain that you discovered and start increasing it. Yeah. Create some urgency here, because in times of urgency, that's when people stop living by their codes, so to speak, and they start dropping their action threshold. So if that person was 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, that's what they need to be, and you only got them to a 7 on you, and you only got them to a theoretical 8 on the product and a 9 on the company. It's like, I need to lower their pain, or I need to increase their pain. I got to lower their action threshold. Maybe on me. It's like, look, I know we don't know each other, right? It's because I need to address me. They don't love me yet. It's like, I know you don't know me enough. But here's the reason why potentially we need to, you might be interested in taking a deeper look at this, right? And you start circling back and say, I know we don't, you start to lower the need of you being the key to this sale or their inaction, right? And say, look,
I know we just met, but you're in a situation right now where all of your retirement's at risk.
And you have not had anybody approach you on this sort of thing. But you have, in a short period of time, learned that our firm has been around for 40 years doing this sort of thing. And I assure you that if we take this leap here, we are not. I will spend the rest of my career working for you in a way that is meaningful and gets you to a point where you believe wholeheartedly that no matter what, I assure you, by the time we're done, you will have every single one of your dollars under our firm because of X, Y, and Z reason.
Right. You just hit the company. We've been here
hit
for 4
those
years.
things, boom, boom,
hit
boom.
you.
I said, this is why this doesn't matter. These two things are the most important things. And yeah, you don't know me just yet, but you're going to get to know me. And you don't have the time to wait to get to know me. And so for those reasons, amongst a few others, this doesn't need to be the thing that holds you back from making the decision today, right? And that's what clicked for me. Not that I wasn't doing this, but it's because that's what I was doing. And Sandler, I keep saying Sandler, and Belfort put it into words as to like what it is that good salespeople do. Because anybody can go through their pitch and close the deals that are going to happen, but without those looping patterns, you don't close the 3-point shots. Everybody can hit the layups, right? And that's his point. It's like all the people can hit the layups. But if you don't know how the areas that you're supposed to go back into your pitch and fix, because you just think of this sale as a super complicated thing, it's not. It's this very simple thing. And so, I don't know. He just does a beautiful job of saying, like, it's just one of these 3 things. Just go back and
figure out which one it is.
Take a gut opinion real quick. Try and go back and handle it, right? Because they're going to have some sort of objection. You'll be able to tie that objection to one of those 3 things. You go back, you try and loop back, see if you can't handle that objection in a way that increases the tens or lowers their action threshold. And then you try again. And if it doesn't work, you loop back again, and you keep looping until they say mercy. And that sounds malicious, but again, it's not, because again, if you tie it in, this is the one thing about Belfort, is like he doesn't mention an upfront contract. He doesn't. But he should more clearly, because you want them to know what their intention is. Belfort's thing is that good marketing takes care of the need for an upfront contracting, but I disagree to that to some degree, especially in our business. And then, you tie that up with good questioning in your pitch. That's why I think all 3 of these are just the best. It's like,
I think it really goes in that order. I think Sandler builds a really good base for somebody who doesn't have a sales process, who takes every call differently, who goes on every appointment. They're like, I'm not really sure where I'm going to go. I'm just going to get on and talk with a person and figure things out, right? It gives you like at least a box checklist to go, hey, look, I need to go from here to here, and I should close people, right? And then you start to realize, like, I'm just talking at people and beating them up with products, benefits, and features. I need to start clarifying where the client is. I need to start asking more questions. I need to help them drive towards understanding, right? Because whatever, every annual review, I get somebody being like, oh, how does this product work again? It's like, right, okay, so you just chirped at them. You didn't really, explain it to them, right? And then once you get past the spin style of, like, asking the questions properly, now it's realizing, like, what you're really driving to the sales process, the efficiency, like how you can take both of those systems, make it into a straight line, make it more efficient, and get more efficient with closing, right?
I think the straight line is my foundational, right? Straight line's foundational. It lays the best, easiest foundation for somebody. But I'd say for my opening, I want to take the upfront contract from Sandler, and I want my pitch to be around spin selling. When I'm pitching, I want to be asking questions that relate to increasing my 310s.
Yep.
But the whole foundational of everything is about
that's a great. And then to deal with your objections, as in the straight line,
straight line.
structure,
Everything's
right?
straight line, but give me the upfront contract and give me the pitch style, because Belfort will say pitching. When you're pitching, you're pitching the 310s, right? But how I'm going to pitch is using spin selling, and then I'm getting to the looping patterns and everything else, right?
Yeah.
And so give me that, and you've got the best sales system, and that, quite frankly, is the federal sales system. So that's how we built it.
Plug that there.
Anyway, but that's it. 3 sales systems: the Sandler Sales System, the Straight Line by Jordan Belfort, and Spin Selling
By Neil Rackman.
By Neil Rackman. That's right. And maybe we'll link all those books in the bio. We can certainly do that. But anyway, thanks for joining us. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found something knowledgeable, and I hope you guys will read those books because they are fantastic. A lot of sales books sound very similar, but these, I found them to be pretty core in my development, and hopefully that will lend you guys same kind of advice. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Coffee Closers. We'll see you next time. Take care.